Good morning, everybody. My name is Councillor Murphy and I'm your Governance Chair. Today I would like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to the City Governance Committee meeting of the 19th of July, and I declare this meeting open at 9:31. I would like to advise attendees in the room that this meeting is being webcast and audio recorded. We have got a huge agenda today and we'll try to move through this quite quickly if we can. First off, I'm going to go to attendances and leaves of absence. I have got Councillor Koranski on the screen. I believe she may leave us at some stage through the meeting and then join us in person a little bit later. And I don't believe there's any other leaves of absence, so thank you very much for that. So let's move on to declarations of conflict of interest. Today's agenda, we are shifting 5.2 to the end of today's proceedings, and I believe there will be some conflicts of interest in relation to that matter, but we'll address them later in the day. But do any other councillors have any conflicts of interest regarding the other reports that they wish to declare? No? Being none, thank you very much, and we'll move on to the reports. So the first report today is item 5.1, the Audit Janitor's Observation Report, Interim Audit, and I'm going to hand over to the Corporate Governance Manager, Ms Anita White. Would you like to enter the discussions, please?
Thank you, Councillor Murphy, and good morning, councillors. Item 5.1 is the Auditor General's Observation Report. As councillors would be aware, the Queensland Audit Office and the Auditor General conduct Council's external audits of financial statements. During April and May each year, they conduct what is referred to as an interim audit to identify any areas for opportunity in advance of the final audit, which is conducted in August. In accordance with the requirements of the local government regulation, the report that the Auditor General presents to the Mayor are required to be presented to the next ordinary meeting, after which they are received. The Mayor has been briefed by the CEO on the interim findings, and the organisation is taking steps to address the interim audit findings. The aim of the organisation is to have controls in place by the time the final audit to manage those findings. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Councillors, do we have any questions at all? Okay. Up on the screen right now is a motion to be moved. Do I have Councillor Fraser has moved it, Councillor Power has seconded. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously, including Councillor Koranski. Thank you, councillors. Before we move on to the next report, does anybody have any general business for the Corporate Governance Manager? Sorry, Anita, for ducking you away too quickly. We thought we'd get you over and done with the GB first. There being none, do you have any for us?
Not today, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We do have a rather lengthy reports today, so I'm sure we'll be talking to you later. Okay, councillors, we're moving on to 5.3, which is a confidential report proposed renewal of council land in Springwood. I note that this is a confidential report and a proposed resolution to move the matter in is on the screen. Do any councillors wish to move this into a closed session? Councillor Bradley, is there a seconder? Councillor Power has seconded the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you. Please be advised that the meeting is now in a confidential. session and the live stream. Sorry? They did. Yeah, that was carried, correct, to go out? Yes? Yep. That has been carried. We are now in open session and the live streaming has commenced. Awesome, thumbs up from down the back. Thank you very much. Councillors, very shortly, there's a motion up on the board for this report. Do I have a mover for this motion? Do I have a mover? Councillor Bradley has moved the report. Is there a seconder? Councillor Powell has seconded the report. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Before you go, Brett, does anybody have any general business for the corporate property manager today? No? Do you have any for us? Excellent.
No, thanks.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much. Councillors, we're now moving on to item 5.4, and before we start, I believe there's an attachment that we need to table today as well. So we're looking at the 2023-2024 annual contract planning. This is a public report, and Ms. Carolyn Bugg, the Finance Manager, will be speaking to the report. But firstly, we have a motion on the board to table the attachment. Can I get a move for that? Councillor Hall has, Councillor Wilcox second. All those in favour, please raise your hand for the attachment. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you. Ms. Carolyn Bugg, would you like to enter the discussions, please?
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, councillors. Item 5.4 is the annual contracting plan for financial year 2023-24. As procurement program has recently moved into the finance branch, this annual report is to be delivered by the branch, but I'd actually, with the Chair's indulgence, like to introduce Acting Program Leader for Procurement, Erin McKinley, to actually speak to the report.
Welcome, Erin.
Thank you, and good morning, councillors. It's been a while since I've been at this table. So through the Chair, as a result of Council applying the strategic contracting procedures to its contracts back in March 2022, Council is now required, as per the local government regulation, to make and adopt a contracting plan each financial year after Council adopts its budget. So yes, as attached to this report, as Caroline said, is the annual contracting plan for the 2023-2024 financial year, which includes a portfolio of procurement activities that we have identified in partnership with all departments of council that are over 500k for this financial year. As per this process, a total of 12 tenders are scheduled to be invited for this financial year, which consists of 3 general contracts, which is worth more than 500,000 but less than 2 million. And then we've got 9 significant contracts worth greater than 2 million or a contract term greater than 10 years. So yeah, happy to open up to questions.
Thank you, Erin. I have Mayor Powell. Oh, thank you very much. Any further questions? Councillor Raven.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Through you. Erin, just looking at the little slide on page 94. So our social spend is crazy low, like 0.6%, and our local spend is declining. Do we have plans to try and increase both of those?
Thank you, Councillor Raven. Through the Chair, so what we're doing to increase our local spend, so I'll go through the rundown of what you guys already probably know, but we will continue to educate and encourage the businesses to engage local suppliers when and where appropriate, as per the Buy Logan policy, which I know you're all familiar with. In addition to this, we continue to work closely with the Economic and Development Program to educate local businesses on how to do business with Council. We do have the next Supplying to Council event tentatively scheduled to be held on Friday the 8th of September. So this event is where local businesses can learn about how to do business with Council, and they also are able to sort of network with the sourcing officers across Council. through the adoption of the strategic contracting procedures, we also now have the flexibility and ability to conduct closed or targeted tenders to local suppliers, and that also goes for saying with your social enterprises as well, if we deem it appropriate for the goods or services being purchased. This is decided through the strategy development phase when we go out for tender, and also through the RFQ phases, which we sort of partner with the branches to do that as well. And then further to that, we've been trying to increase our corporate procurement team's skills in market analysis to be able to sort of identify more local suppliers and also to identify those social enterprise groups as well. So we're trying to get a little bit better to help identify them so that we can be more proactive in promoting them across the business for our lower spend contracts as well, being RFQs, so that under that 500K mark. I'll just check if there was anything else on social enterprises. I know you are familiar with the Social Traders membership that we now have, which allows us to have information sessions to communicate the benefits of social procurement, the types of positive impact that can have on the community. And again, it's just a real big education piece for the business, including ourselves. So yes.
So we've just got to try and get the branches to essentially prioritise local and social content more? Is that the...
Yeah, it's one of our goals, yes, is to firstly identify who those social enterprises are, the local businesses are, and then to be able to proactively promote that across the business. Yeah.
And with those closed tenders for specific projects, have you got any of those identified on the horizon, or has that work not been done yet?
No, there is one. I probably can't mention it in public forum as
Okay.
yet.
No, that's fine.
However, there is one, yes.
Cool, awesome. I have one more question, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Councillor Raven, but there is another report coming as well with regards to the amendment, so you might be crossing over into the next report as well.
Okay.
But please ask your question. And then we have Councillor Powell.
I don't think it gets amended. So I checked them both last night. So on page 95 in the amendments to the contracting plan, you've got the enterprise information management being removed from the contract because the information management project has been ceased. Have we been given an update on why that project's been ceased?
No, I don't.
And I assume you guys can't tell me because you're just doing the finance side of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that you have received
Okay.
that update yet.
And so who would we get that from?
That'll be EPMO.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. Has they answered your questions? Thank you. Mayor Powell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I couldn't think of a better time to bring this up. In regards to the development industry at the moment, construction industry, there's so much work around that contractors tend to have the habit of, when they've got so much work, to put in crazy tenders. And then all of a sudden, they end up with the work because everyone else is busy as well. And they end up with obviously very lucrative deals. I would like to expand the procurement side of things so that we get a wider choice of contractors, because I think in this market at the moment there's so much work out there that they're just like putting their tenders in and just throwing an extra nought on the end, and they don't really care if they don't get it because they've got so much work. That I think we should expand what our normal practice is and certainly go outside our regular suppliers, because it's widely known that council's a bit of an easy touch when it comes to, and some of the let's say some of the construction things like toilet blocks and that, like I nearly fall over backwards because I think I could build a 4-bedroom house for that. So we need to tighten up. This is an area that we really need to tighten up. I certainly don't want to see any political interference with this. You've got a big responsibility, and certainly councillors should stay away from this area because it's obviously fraught with danger. That's why we don't probably comment on some of the things that we see. But I think overall, we really need to have a better go at this. If a toilet block comes at the price of a house, we need to expand to other contractors, because I'm nearly falling over. I know that we have conditions that would regular construction is probably over and above, because we want that toilet block to last for 60, 100 years. But the problem is within 20 years it's outdated and we think, oh, we've knocked that over anyway. So we over-engineer to some degree. But I really want to see it tightening up, and I think other councillors, when they see construction costs, they question it, because they think, well, hang on, that's just too much. And I think that's going to come into question now, because, I mean, I've recently built a house and the final bill was a lot more than what I signed for as a contract. So that's going to be questionable, but you need to obviously expand and exercise your right to go outside the preferred suppliers if you feel that the cost, the prices are too expensive. Don't be scared, because sometimes I think they're in collaboration with each other, and they talk and they say, well, you know, this is the price that we're going to set it at. Let's go with that, and then we'll share it among us. And that's pretty widely known in the industry. So we need to expand outside. You know, in the days where I've been here, where I saw contractors coming in, giving officers bottles of whiskey and all sorts of stuff at Christmas time, I hate to think that that's still happening. We need to tighten up. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, do you have a question, or do you want to make a...
I want to make a concerted effort to go outside the preferred suppliers list to test the market at all times. If officers feel that the prices are too high, then they need to go outside the preferred suppliers list, because I think sometimes they collaborate together and they work out a price and they don't go outside that price. I think we need to expand and test the market.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Caroline and Erin, is that within the policy?
Yeah, so through the chair, so when you say go outside of the preferred supplier arrangement, that's outside of the contract that's existing, is that correct? When you say that? Yeah, great. So yeah, we can go off contract if we feel that we need to at times, depends what the clauses in the contract are, but through the market analysis that we do through the extension phases, so if a contract's for 3 years and then it's up for renewal for an extension, we do a thorough market analysis to ensure that the prices are still competitive. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr Mayor, has that answered your question? Okay. Thank you, Erin. Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much. I am very careful about putting pathways into the community simply because of the cost of them. And there was a recent one where I was asked to put a pathway in to service a small space that has about 30 children attending. And for 322 metres of concrete at 1.2 wide, the quote was $76,000. And that seemed like an awful lot of expenditure to make for a small number of young people, but they are young people and they do need pathways. So when the Mayor says looking outside usual contractors, I would love it if you would do that, simply because that's unaffordable. It's unsustainable and it's unaffordable. I know that the price of concrete has gone up substantially. We're fortunate we have an expert here who tells us about what's going on in the market, but 76k is a lot of money for that, and you do it for 50, good job. But my point is the Mayor's absolutely right. There are certain things within the org where I just think, my goodness, how do they come up with that amount? We're very fortunate in that our team of Jason Chin and the like are always hunting for the best price. But there's not always that capacity to do it under the current policy, and that's my concern about it. So, yep, I support the Mayor's comments in this.
Thank you, councillors. Are there any further questions? Yes, Councillor Bannon.
Through the chair, there is one way around it, which is what the projects do, is to have, do we have estimators and can you put in set, so with us, estimators are doing it, we just get a set rate. So say you do 5 different buildings or different rates of things, and you have a set rate to that, and you don't go out for quotes. You put out the set rate to the market. So like with a project builder, we get told, for a pod you might get 25 a square, including machine hire. So that's it. If you want it, you take it. If you don't want it, you don't want it. There's always someone who'll take it. Whereas if I price a house or something like that, then I'll charge about 35 a square because that's better money. At the end of the day, I do the project builders for the cheaper rate because I know I'm going to get paid, which is the biggest risk out there at the moment, because builders are falling over left, right and centre. So there is another way, and I don't know if you do that, but you could do 5 different community builds, you could do 3 different sporting clubs, you could, and you estimate a quote stat. The market, you have a set price and you put the set price to the market. So that's another way. That's the way we do it out here anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Bannon. Ladies, do we have any comment with regards to that?
No comment. I'll take it on notice. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. If there's no further questions, there should be a motion on the board. Is there someone to move the motion, please? Councillor Hall has moved it. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bannon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And thank you, Laurie. I've got you. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Councillors, we're moving on to 5.5, which is an update and amendment to the annual contract plan. Ladies, do you want to start your discussion, please?
Yep, so through the Chair, the purpose of this report is to provide Council with an update on the progress of procurement activities listed in the 2022-2023 annual contracting plan, local supplier engagement for the 2022-2023 financial year, and any amendments that have been made to the 2022-2023 annual contracting plan to ensure it's a true reflection of the procurement activities that have occurred within the previous financial year. The highlights of this report that I'd like to highlight to you all today is as of the end of May, Council has spent approximately $515 million in the 2022-2023 financial year, with approximately 42% of this spend being with local businesses and local benefit businesses as defined in our Buy Logan policy. Approximately 64% of tenders that were awarded to local suppliers, approximately 64% of tenders were awarded to local suppliers or represented on a panel arrangements, and approximately 66% of tenders attracted responses from local suppliers. Further to this, of the 154 RFQs advertised, a total of 157 local suppliers were invited to quote. I'm happy to open up for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Aaron. Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much for you, Madam Chair. So the local buy spend was the same as the previous financial year at 42%.
Through the Chair, I'd have to check that and get back to you to confirm.
Thank you. Did you want to add any more? Or Councillor Raven, are you entering into this conversation? No? Okay. Councillor, if there's no further questions, there's a motion on the board. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Hall, followed by Councillor Raven. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Councillor Kransky, are you still there? She may have left. That's carried with all Councillor Bannon being out of the room, and we aren't able to contact Councillor Kransky at this stage. She may be trying to get to the office right now. She's been at a community meeting this morning. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Erin. Further on, report number 5.6, Financial Performance Report, May 2023. Over to you, Ms. Bug. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the financial report ending May 2023, there are no new significant risks identified in May. However, I would like to speak to the risk that we had in the report of non-receipt of the financial assistance grant. I can confirm that the funding was received in financial year ending 30 June 23, and it was $13 million. There was also another issue since the time of writing of this report that I'd just like to raise, and that is that Council received notification that Q Energy, an electricity company, previously supplying council small sites, had been suspended from the energy market. Council has since engaged in a short-term 3-month arrangement, and we will go back out to market to reinstate, I guess, a contract for those small sites. In relation to the operating position for the end of May, we had a surplus of $17.97 million. The main drivers continue to be a higher than budget revenue, but there are no new drivers from previously reported. So it's in essence the Logan Water returns via tax equivalents and private works, Logan Water private works. Again, expenditure, no new drivers and variances there. They are explained on page 110 of the agenda. Just noting that our investment returns do continue to increase due to the official interest rate rises. Speaking to the rates and charges, they are still holding well in the current environment, and noting that the current quarterly levy is due to hit the streets this week. So it'll be interesting to see whether we start to see any changes in those hardship policies or discussions with council. Also will note that one of the sundry debtors, bear with me while I just make note, is Northwest Healthcare have actually paid that amount in June. So other than that, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Caroline. Councillor Stamp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I was just checking on the SEQ water debtor. Has that also been paid?
So I checked this morning through the chair. I checked this morning, and that's still outstanding. We've had notification from Logan Water earlier, no, beg your pardon, last week, that they are still following that up and expected to be paid.
Thank you, Caroline. I have Councillor Lane and then Councillor Bradley.
So Caroline, this is going to be a bit of a wackadoodle question, but please bear with me. I've actually got a site in my division, and it's not the only one in my division, but it's actually a site that is absolutely appallingly maintained. In fact, it's not maintained at all. After the tornado that flew through in February 2021, the building wasn't repaired, and as such, it's fallen into a really bad state of disrepair. Now, we're limited in what we can do under local government laws when it comes to actually going in and clearing out the property and what have you. And if we did do that, it'd be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to actually do this property. What mechanisms can be used to actually recover that money or force that money from the owners? If you could please give me some idea.
Thank you, Councillor. Through the chair. For a clean-up of a property, we can allocate those costs to the property rates account. So if we were to go through, there's a process that we'd have to follow, but to go through that process, we can then allocate those costs. Ultimately, we would collect those costs as we would any rates outstanding, enter into agreement. They do have a limited life, because the idea of the hardship agreements is to bring people back into an even keel, if you like. But we would follow the collection process through a rates account.
Right, and how long would we give, just say there was over the $100,000 for a clearing, how long would we give under a hardship provision if they claim hardship? Or would we be able to demand the money immediately?
Our preference is to go through the hardship policy and provisions initially.
For an investor?
Well, for an owner.
Yep.
And if they didn't adhere to the arrangements, it falls straight back into, we go through collection and go through the legal process.
Thanks very much for that answer. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. It's always a hard one when you've got properties like that. And I'm sure that Council does everything within their power to provide a good service to get an outcome. Councillor Bradley.
Thank you. Through the chair. Thank you for the report. Can you hear me okay? I am a bit concerned about the rates arrears and the hardship. Is there any statistical data about when we've reached that point for hardship before? Like historical data? Because like that's creeping up a bit.
We are, through the chair, we are monitoring this pretty closely at the moment. And I could go back a quarter and say that on average we had, for the accounts we had on hardship, there were $2,706. There were 1,983 properties on hardship or owners on those arrangements, and that was in February. In May of this year, that's gone up to 2,195, but the average is still at that 2,733. So we are tracking. We do have the statistics on that because we are concerned. We're wanting to make sure that we any lead indicators that we might have, that we need to make more contact with owners, or for them to give them option to contact us. But at the moment it does seem fairly steady.
Yes.
And the overall outstanding amount on rates hasn't gone up at all.
Do you anticipate that may change in the near future when people get off their fixed rates for?
Yeah, I would expect just the general cost of living as well as interest rates on mortgages to impact on outstanding rates. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Is there any further questions? No? Then we'll have a motion up on the board. Would someone like to move the motion? Councillor Stemp. Anybody to second, please? Councillor Hall. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And please note that Councillor Kerensky has logged out and is on her way back to the office. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on. Our next report is 5.7, the Debt Policy 2023-24 Administrative Correction. Carolyn, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The debt policy was adopted as part of the annual budget pack at the June Special Council meeting. After subsequently reviewing these documents again, after adoption, it was noted that a table in the internal borrowings as presented on page 124 of the agenda was incorrect at the time of adoption. This report is specifically that, so you know, the error was actually in the table headers, so the years were incorrect. We're bringing this report back today to seek endorsement of the administrative amendment to correct those dates in the table and the debt policy.
Thank you, Carolyn. I have a mover in Councillor Lane, a seconder in Councillor Bannon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next report. This one is always a fun one. 5.8, which is the Local Infrastructure Program July. This means our councillors are working out in your community and out there fixing any issues that they have. So over to you, Caroline.
Thank you, Chair. So item 5.8 is the Local Infrastructure Program for the month of July. This month you'll note there are 25 projects in the first attachment, of which 3 of these are classified as low risk under the Local Infrastructure Program guidelines. There are 5 significant amendments to projects detailed in the second attachment to the report, and this includes a cancellation of a project. There is 1 project requiring special consideration under the guidelines, and Ben's joined me to speak to that if and as required. The report is seeking the adoption of these projects in both the attachments.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you for joining us. Ben, does any councillor have any questions with regards to this report, including the special consideration? No, there being none. There is a motion up on the board. Councillor Wilcox has moved it. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hall. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That has been carried with the exception of Councillor Heremiah. How do you vote?
Abstain.
Thank you. Thank you. That was really easy for you, Mr. Ben. Before we move on, is there any general business for the Finance Manager today? Councillor Bradley.
Yeah, could you, through the chair, could you please inform me what the exact amount is for LIP this financial year, please? Sorry.
The LIP funding, how much is it this year?
For per division, I will have to get back to you on that one. Sorry, Councillor.
Thank you. You'll take that one on notice and get back to Councillor Bradley. Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Carolyn, do you have anything for us? Thank you. Have a great day. Councillors, we're moving on to 5.9. It is a confidential report. It is the South East Queensland Regional Plan project. So I note that 5.9 is confidential report. A proposed resolution to move this matter is displayed on the screen. Do any councillors wish to move into a closed session? There being none, okay, we'll move straight on. Remember, councillors, this hasn't been closed off. Over to you, Ms Smith.
Good morning, councillors. I can speak to this out of confidential. As a part of our ComSec membership, we have the opportunity to participate in studies that can provide important data for a growing city such as Logan. The report in front of you outlines 3 opportunities in relation to upcoming studies, in relation to region infrastructure, freight movement and a regional data plan. The financial commitment represents a co-contribution and has been funded by the roads team and the Office of the CEO, and we're seeking endorsement from committee today.
Thank you, Beck. Councillors, is there any questions? No, there'll be a motion up on the board very shortly. And do I have a mover for that motion, please? Councillor Hall has moved it. Is there someone to second it? Councillor Raven has seconded it. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, councillors, we're moving on to 5.10. 2023 Local Government Association of Queensland Annual Conference. Over to you, Beck, again.
Thank you, councillors. So this report today serves 2 purposes. It's the endorsement of delegates to the Local Government Association of Queensland Annual General Conference in Gladstone in October this year, and secondly, the endorsement of the proposed motion for submission to the conference, which pertains to advocating to the Queensland State Government to allow councils to be included as a law enforcement agency in the Police Services Administration Regulation of 2016. A copy of the motion with case studies is included, and I'm happy to take any questions should the councillors have any.
Thank you. Councillor Bradley.
Thank you. I'm not sure if councillors can remember I raised this matter, the particular motion on page 137 relates to a matter I raised a year ago, which hasn't been resolved. So it's good to see this here, and hopefully it gets up at the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Any
Councillor.
further questions at all? The motion is on the board. Is there someone to move the motion? Councillor Bradley has moved it. Is there a seconder? Councillor Powell. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We're now moving on to 5.11, which is a confidential report, a local roads and community infrastructure program phase 2. I note that this report, 5.11, is confidential, and a proposed resolution to move this matter is displayed on the screen. Do any councillors wish to move into confidential? Councillor Lane has moved it. Is there a seconder? Councillor Raven has seconded it. All those in favour to move into confidential? Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. How was it going? the live streaming? Thank you very much. Okay, councillors, we are now in open session and the live streaming has recommenced. There is a motion up on the board. Do I have a mover? Councillor Jeremiah has moved it. Councillor Bradley is second. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That has been carried, Mr. Bannon, unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ben. Now we'll move on to item 5.12, the region shaping infrastructure. Ms. Beck, you're taking this report again?
Yes, 4 from 4, councillor.
Thank you.
I present the report today on the region shaping infrastructure. The State Department of Development, Infrastructure, Local Government and Planning, in context of preparing for the South East Queensland Regional Plan, requested a list from local governments, and ComSec also requested a list from local governments. They've given us a really short time span in which to do this. The advocacy team, ELT and various managers across council have been reviewing existing endorsed infrastructure projects outlined under or through the lens of the 4 key criteria under the region shaping infrastructure, of which is listed on page 143 of your report. When considering the list, ultimately the Queensland Government will decide which products they consider region shaping after we've submitted it. And as I said, projects were chosen based on the criteria set by the Government and are identified in existing council endorsed strategies such as Way to Go. The transport projects, which you'll see first up in the list, largely fall into 2 broad groupings. One is projects that increase mobility across South East Queensland region, i.e. Salisbury to Bow Desert Rail and extension of the South East Busway. Or secondly, key projects from the sub-regional infrastructure agreement that have particular strategic significance. Logan Lee Road project was given the #1 ranking because it's already under construction. I suspect that councillors may have a couple of questions with regards to these. I've got Darryl, Kamal and Stephen Bell on standby should anyone have any questions about the list. Otherwise, we're looking for endorsement so we can submit the listing to the State Government and ComSec.
Thank you very much, councillors. Do we have any questions with regards to this report today? Councillor Power.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. In regards to the list, I look at the South East Busway extension, and that is obviously of state significance. Whether or not it's council's priority list, I don't know, because the situation is the freeway is basically a Brisbane to Gold Coast connector. It is absolutely saturated every day with, it's funny, it's even out of hours now, it's absolutely concentrated with traffic. I would have thought that that was a priority of the state to try and remove as many cars as possible off the freeway onto the busway. Where is it that we sort of put up one of the state's priorities in our own list? Because I believe they're proceeding with this. I thought it would have been more beneficial for us to enhance some of the more localised projects rather than one of state significance that's already proceeding. Because I do know that residents in the Springwood to Loganholme property owners have been contacted, those whose houses are going to be resumed. So they're obviously proceeding with that. So I just thought, well, okay, that's proceeding. We should have our own significant projects here, not of state significance. It seems like when the state recently, I did a radio interview regarding infrastructure charges, and the Treasurer said, yeah, we're looking after Logan, we've built the motorway, the Pacific Highway, and we're putting the hospital in. The Pacific Motorway is being upgraded because people in their penthouses in Brisbane have got to get to their beach houses in the Gold Coast. It's not about looking after Logan residents, and I thought this was a priority of looking after Logan residents, and that's of state significance. So I'm sort of like in a quandary why it would be number 2 when I'm thinking we need to look after our own, because the state government would say, well, you know, yeah, we've taken care of number 2 for you. What are you whinging about? We need to put our own roads up here, not state roads. That's how I see it.
Thank you, Mayor Powell. Beck has got the roads team here. Welcome, gentlemen. I hand it over to you to respond if needed.
Through you, Madam Chair. So the region shaping infrastructure, which they've actually requested us to send back information on in the report, is around, I guess, those regionally significant projects across the whole of Queensland. So to that extent, the state's actually asking us to put forward the projects which we think are actually important to the Logan region in that regional shaping perspective, so they can compare those projects to the projects that would come from Moreton Bay, from Sunshine Coast, from Cairns and from Toowoomba. The list that they've asked us for is not only the projects would actually be council's own projects to fund, but the projects which the council actually sees as important to being able to have our economy, our businesses and the likes actually connected to that broader community. If we don't include the projects which are actually state projects as well, and we go through a prioritisation process which excludes those when they're looking at funding, then we actually run the risk that other areas will actually include those regional state projects in their lists and are likely to be funded at the expense of us actually saying that those upgrades are not that important to us as a council. So the list has a combination of both. It has those projects which are important to us to actually be delivered by the state, and I certainly acknowledge that you've indicated that there is funding already attached to the project on the M1, but there are other projects in this list which are state-orientated criteria which are included in the One Network model which Council has endorsed for how we actually connect our city to the rest of the state and how we support our business. So there is an obligation on us to at least keep those in the mix so they are at least considered. It would not be, I think, a good outcome for Council if we were actually saying that some of those projects, albeit state-delivered projects, are not that important, because that will end up being relative not only to the projects that we put up, but projects that are put up by other local authorities across the state.
Look, I understand what you're saying and I understand the philosophy. I don't agree with the opportunity missed. I'll just make that statement.
Thank you, Mayor Powell. We've got a few people that want to ask some questions. So I have Councillor Wilcox, Councillor Lane and then Councillor Raven. Councillor Wilcox?
Thank you. And I did email through some questions and thank you for the responses and that sort of thing. I have to agree with Mayor Power on this one though. But as you said, you've just stated, keep them on the list. That's all well and good. Can we keep them on the list, but can we rearrange the order a little bit? Because their priorities are obviously a little bit different to ours. You know, putting the South East Busway extension to Beenleigh, all well be it may, you know, we can all sit here and we can all see projects that we would like to see moved around on this list because we can see a need for our community and that sort of thing. And it's all well and good to say that, yes, it's what the state would like or what the feds would like, but what about what our residents want in the area and that sort of thing? Because for me, they're not coming into play in this because I can tell you now, my residents are not going to go and use the South East Busway extension to Beenleigh. I fail to see why flood improvements for Mount Lindesay Highway are on there, even though I travel it and so does Councillor Bannon, but there's only one section or two sections that I can see that are getting cut and this sort of thing. So I have to agree with Mayor Power on this one, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. I don't think there's any need to respond to that, gentleman, but I've got Councillor Lane.
Thanks, and the federal government and the state government are absolutely correct in that their priorities are their priorities and they would love to see us confirm their priorities, which is exactly what we're doing. My question to you is, we were successful in a number of rounds because we put an expensive project, a medium project and a smaller project forward. That wasn't a consideration in this one, obviously, in the way of thinking. It was just let's list all of the local projects. Is that how it worked out, or?
Through you, Madam Chair, the list of priorities, the number one criteria on it was that it has to actually be regional shaping infrastructure. So it needs to actually be tied to either the connection of our city to the rest of Queensland, or it has to be tied to the major SEQ population growth arrangements and how that connects as well. So, so the projects which...
Sorry, I think you've misunderstood my question, which is, I have no problem with the list. It's the prioritisation of the list. So Kristen did a wonderful job when she was putting forward projects for us to be considered during COVID. We went through a number of options. We went from most expensive, as in dream big, and then go to the middle of the road, and then the little projects that could be picked up, such as the Riverine Discovery Centre, getting the extra money for that. You know, different projects that we could see are low-hanging fruit and easy to take a hold of. That doesn't appear to have happened in this list. That's just my only concern with this list. Kristen, do you have anything on that?
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Through you, Madam Chair. This list is not really linked to any kind of funding or any kind of advocacy for funding. What the state government is doing is it's developing the South East Queensland Regional Plan, and it's developing a South East Queensland infrastructure supplement, and then there's also attached to that an SEQ City Deal region shaping planning project. So really all you're doing is saying, when you're considering all of these planning that you're doing, these are projects which have a region shaping element to them, in the sense that, one, it would improve mobility across the SEQ region. That's why you're seeing things like the South East Busway and Mount Lindesay Highway and those sorts of ones in there. But two, there are some projects in there that are particularly important for those new growth areas around Flagstone and so forth. So it's really the context of the South East Queensland Regional Plan that these projects will be considered. There is nothing to prevent council from then having a whole other list which says this is the advocacy priorities for this election, or this is the advocacy priorities for your particular budget. But when they're looking at, for example, their investment across the South East Queensland region, and they're saying where should we put, for example, an enhancement of our our rail capacity, you don't want the Salisbury to Bow Desert Rail not considered as part of one of the projects which ought to be invested in. And some projects are invested in purely by federal and state governments because they are of that scale, and other projects would be invested in that would include council investment along with state investment and potentially federal government investment, depending on the nature of that particular project. So my suggestion is that you put in a wide list so that all of the projects, transport projects or mobility projects that are of importance to the region are in that mix. Ultimately, the South East Queensland Regional Plan, it'll be the Queensland Government who says in or out in terms of which particular projects. But you don't want to omit something and then have the question asked, oh, don't you really want the Salisbury to Bow Desert Rail? Are you really sure that this road is more important? So to be fair to the transport team who did the prioritisation, you know, you can argue about this priority being there versus this one being there and so on. But it's more important, I think, to have an expansive list so that they're all there. And then we can look, I think one of the recommendations is we can then look at our advocacy strategies around particular projects, including projects that don't sit on this particular list because they're probably not of that region shaping scale, but they may be of particular importance to the way the city operates or particular areas operate.
And that's the reason why I put the question straight to you, is because it's harder for you gentlemen to defend what you've put up versus the person who works in the advocacy strategy section who we know has delivered before. So that's why I asked the question. Thank you for explaining.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. I have Councillor Raven and then Mayor Power.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm going to echo the sentiment of my colleagues that I totally agree that you should have as many things on the list as possible. But we are elected to represent the people of Logan. I don't care about the rest of the region, and you are paid by the people of Logan to care about them more than the rest of the region. While I understand as a professional you have a broader context where you think about how it links into the broader network, things that benefit our community more, either economically, socially, or for their movement through our city and to get to employment, should be prioritised above something that could be used by people to get from their penthouse to their beach house. I agree with the Mayor on that. So anything that's of lower value to the city than the region should be at the bottom of the list. And things that are of greater value to the residents of Logan, the ratepayers of Logan, should be higher on the list. So the Park Ridge Connector, Southern Gateway Extension, will make huge economic impact on the city, massive amounts of employment and economic activity. That is very different to a busway. And so, I'm not looking at the list this split second to see what's where, but just one, although I see that priority 2 is the busway extension to Beenleigh, which I know people in Beenleigh will use. I get that. But will the people of Beenleigh who get access to employment, easier access to employment in the city when they already have a train that goes to the city, is that going to be a bigger impact than the economic unlocking of all the land to the south of Park Ridge? I don't think it is. So I just ask that when we're doing the priorities, that it's based on greatest need for the greatest number of people in Logan. Everybody else can go jump. If it happens to benefit them too, great. But that is an ancillary priority to the needs of our city. The other question, and I thought about this last night when I looked at the criteria that you've put in, are those the only 4 criteria? So that's fundamental to realisation of land use patterns, fundamental to the movement of people to access employment, movement of goods, significant funding requirement across multiple levels of government, and is of regional economic significance. Are those the only criteria?
Those are the criteria of the set by
Cool.
the state government. Yeah.
So there's some infrastructure that isn't traditional transport infrastructure that meets 2 or 3 of those criteria, like digital infrastructure. Could we be putting that into this list as well? Because traditionally funded by other levels of government, not us. Massive economic of regional economic significance, because if you get fibre optic spine brought through our city, it's easier to access for scenic rim. So there's your regional tick. Of course, it benefits Logan first, which is what's important. And then we get decent mobile phone coverage, which adds to your accessibility to employment and other things like that. So rather than just thinking about what the state wants us to box tick, let's be the only ones who ask for digital infrastructure and be the only ones who get a significant investment in it, because we're cool and different. What was that? Mavericks, because we're Mavericks. Thank you. Sorry, Madam Chair, I wrapped up faster than
Thank you. I think you're hearing loud and clear from the councillors what we think with regards to prioritisation of the list. But Councillor Power, I think you wanted to have another go?
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any business. I just want to say that I have to, Madam Chair, I have to leave the meeting for about 10 minutes. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Power. We'll see you shortly. Councillors, do we have any further questions? No? We have a motion up on the screen. Is there a mover for the motion? Councillor Bannon has moved it. Is there a seconder? Councillor Fraser has seconded. Sorry?
Motion?
Yeah. Yes, Councillor Raven?
I know, but you're just going to endorse it as is, without requesting priorities get changed? Is that what the mover and seconder wants to do? Okay, sweet. Yes, please explain the meeting code to me in great detail and small words, Councillor Bannon.
Councillor, I'm running the meeting, not you, Mr. Raven. So Councillor Bannon has moved this recommendation and Councillor Fraser has seconded it. All those in favour, please raise your hand now. Okay, that hasn't been carried. So, Councillor Raven. Oh, sorry, can we have those hands back up again, please, so we can count them? So, Councillor Bradley, Councillor Fraser, Councillor Bannon and myself. And then the rest, please, can we go round on how you voted?
Against. Against.
Against.
Against.
Against.
Against.
Against.
And Councillor Power is out of the room, and we've lost Councillor Kransky at the moment. We're hoping to get her back on. So that hasn't been carried. So, Councillor Raven, would you like to give us an amended motion, please?
I would love to. Can I please move that we defer this decision to Ordinary Council to give the staff an opportunity to do a Logan first priority list with some digital infrastructure chucked in perhaps, but just defer to Ordinary Council for consideration of the priority order.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. We'll just give the meeting team, just a small moment to get that motion up on the board. Bear with us. How good is this team? We have that motion up on the board. I take it, Mr. Raven, that you're going to pass that motion, and Councillor Lane, you're going to second. All those in favour, please raise your hand now. Okay, that has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies. Ms. Smith, before you go, do you have any general business for us?
No, I don't, thank you.
And councillors, do anybody have general business for Beck at all? No? Thank you very much for coming today. Thank you. Okay, councillors, we're moving on to item 5.13, which is a confidential report, value for money program. Ms. Kay, you're coming down. Thank you. I note that this item 5.13 is a confidential report. A proposed resolution to move this matter is displayed on the screens. Do any councillors wish to go into closed session? Councillor Bradley has. Anybody else? Councillor Raven. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. Thank you. We are now in open session. Yes. So first off, councillors, we have to table the confidential PowerPoint presentation that was supplied to us. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Stemp, have I got a seconder? Councillor Russell, all those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. And then we'll move on to the motion. And Councillor Kerensky has joined us again via Teams. There's a motion on the board. Do I have a mover for the motion? Councillor Stamp has moved it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wilcox. All those in favour, please raise your hands. And that has been carried unanimously, noting that Councillor Kerensky is on Teams. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kay. Before you leave us, councillors, do anybody have general business for Miss Kay Sullivan today? None? Do you have any for us?
Nothing today, thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a pleasant day. Thank you very much. Okay, councillors, now we'll direct your attention back to item 5.2, and I'll ask Miss Anita White to join us. This is a councillor conduct investigation report. Right, bear with me for a second. Anita, I open the floor to you. Oh, sorry. Sorry, this is going to be a very complicated report, so please bear with me. So, item 5.2, the City Governance meeting of today. I now refer to the declarations of conflicts of interest. In accordance with section 14.2 of the Local Government and Committee Meeting Code, Councillor Bradley has a declarable conflict of interest in the matter in which is being noted in the minutes. This provision also provides that Councillor Bradley is permitted to remain in the meeting during the debate about whether she has engaged in alleged inappropriate conduct and answer any questions put to her by other councillors. The permission to remain in the meeting for debate is on the condition that she must leave the meeting during the vote and on whether she has engaged in inappropriate contact and what, if any, penalty to be imposed. Do any councillors wish to declare a conflict of interest against today's item 5.2 on today's agenda? So I have both Councillor Bradley and Councillor Kerensky. So we may go to Councillor Bradley first, please.
Thank you. Through the Chair, I have a declarable conflict of interest with item 5.2.
Can you speak into the microphone?
I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 5.2 as it refers to myself. I propose to leave the meeting whilst the matter is being discussed. I wish to explain why I am leaving. Years ago, I witnessed how words used were perceived to influence. The words, "trust you will do it," was stated by a former mayor who had a conflicted interest with a development application before a decision by councillors was decided. To clarify, no present councillor voted in favour of that development application. I am mindful that anything I say at this point can be perceived as influencing. As my responses to the investigators' report are on page 76 and 77 of the committee report, within the background report. Therefore, I will be leaving the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. I understand that you're going to do a statement as well before you leave?
That was my statement.
That your statement? Okay, thank you very much. If you'd like to leave the meeting, thank you. Councillor Raven?
Sorry, Madam Chair, I've got questions for the councillor. Is she remaining for questions before the discussion starts, or is she leaving now?
No, I'm leaving.
She is leaving.
I've stated why.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Bradley, I'll just give you a moment to gather yourself and to leave the room. If you could turn your microphone off, that would be appreciated too. Thank you. Councillor Kransky, we'll go to you next. If you could just give us a moment, please. Thank you very much. Councillor Kransky, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. So I understand that you're declaring a conflict of interest in today's meeting. Could you please proceed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, Councillor Laurie Karansky, declare a declarable conflict of interest in relation to 5.2 of the City Governance Committee being held today on the 19th of July 2023. Mr. David Kenny is the complainant in this matter. He is the administrator of a Facebook page that has made disparaging comments about me. While I've received advice from the City Solicitor that his involvement as a complainant in this matter does not technically trigger a conflict of interest for me, I'm declaring a conflict of interest voluntarily to mitigate the risk of Mr. Kenny suggesting my involvement has in any way affected the integrity of this process, and I plan to leave the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Karansky. I now ask you to leave this meeting, please. Councillor Bannon, can you just hold on? Councillor Karansky has left the meeting. Councillor Bannon, you may proceed.
I don't understand his conflict of interest. If someone says bad things about you, like if that's the case, then why aren't you declaring a conflict or the mayor? Like could you talk to that? Is that okay, Madam Chair?
So, Councillor Bannon, are you...
No, I'm not declaring a conflict or saying someone's got a conflict. I'm asking the question is if Councillor Karansky said she has a conflict, what's the difference between Councillor Raven or the mayor? Like it's just because someone runs a group that says things about you.
So, at this stage, are you saying you do reasonably believe that Councillor Raven and Councillor Power have a declarable conflict of interest, or you just want to ask questions?
I definitely don't think any of them have got a conflict of interest. So I'd just like to ask them, what's the difference?
Okay, thank you. Mayor Power and then Councillor Raven, and I know Councillor Lane you wanted to add to this, but I'll go to Mayor Power first. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think each councillor is entitled to their own conclusion on this, whether or not you've got a conflict or not. We can't really question a councillor's conflict of interest. If they declare a conflict in their belief, then we're not to judge that. In this circumstances, I'm aware that one of the complainants has criticised myself, John, Councillor Bradley, Councillor Raven and Councillor Karansky, but in hindsight, if I was to declare a conflict of interest every time someone criticised me, e.g. The rail trail, any of the other projects that are happening where you've got opposition, you wouldn't be able to sit in any meetings. So on that, I just want to state that I don't believe there's been any legal action between the two, myself and this person. There's an ongoing issues going with myself and that person. So it's only criticism. And like I said, if you were to abstain from partaking in these committees, we'd end up with no councillors here, because that would also be seen as a way of reducing the vote, which I don't think is the way that this was set up to be. So I will not be declaring any conflict of interest, because I don't believe I have a conflict, and I believe that Councillor Raven's probably in the same boat as me.
Thank you, Councillor Power. Councillor Raven, did you want to add to that?
Yes, please, Madam Chair, through you. So leading up to this, I just double-checked what the legislation says about what what a declarable conflict of interest is. There's two things. One is that a councillor could or reasonably presume to have a conflict of interest between their personal interest or the personal interest of the related party to the councillor and the public interest, or two, because the conflict and the councillor's participation in decision about the matter might lead to a decision that is contrary to the public interest. I don't think I've met either of those criteria, but I'd be more comfortable with a councillor asking to test that and councillors voting to decide whether or not I have a conflict of interest. I think it's smarter for the mayor to do that as well, but it's up to him. So if you want to say there's a reasonable chance I have a conflict of interest, I'd be very happy to have it tested by my colleagues, as we've done in the past, because that way I'm covered, the mayor is covered, and we can carry on knowing that in the view of the council that we don't have a conflict.
Councillor Bannon, do you wish to...
Through the chair, it's hard for me to declare that now because I've said I don't think you have. So someone else wants to do it, no problem, but I don't think you have. So I can't say, do you... Well, publicly said you don't have one. Is that right?
Thank you. As the chair, I'm comfortable for both Mayor Power and Councillor Raven to stay within the meeting. They've given their reasoning behind this. Councillor Karansky has given her reasoning and she sought legal advice from our city solicitor, and she has every right to leave the meeting as well. So I believe that we should be moving on, but Councillor Lane, I know that you wanted to... No? You're fine. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, councillors. Now we'll move on. I will now refer to the Corporate Governance Manager, Ms Anita White, to speak to the report. Ms White, would you proceed?
Thank you, and through the chair. This report presents the recommendations of an independent investigation report following notifications to the Office of the Independent Assessor relating to the conduct of Councillor Lisa Bradley. At the outset, could I say that reports of this nature are challenging for all of us. The notifications relate to posts made on Councillor Bradley's social media page on 29 January. A member of the community lodged a complaint with the OIA on 2 February 2023, and as information relating to the posts also came to the attention of officers within the organisation, a notification was also made by the organisation to the OIA on 7 February 2023, consistent with the officers' obligations under the Local Government Act. The investigation report forms the substantive material to this report, and it contains a number of attachments. For clarity, I just wanted to run through those attachments because it's quite a lot of information attached to that report. The attachments include the referral notice from the OIA, the original complaint and the original notification at attachments 1, 2 and 3 respectively, which appear at pages 44 to 56 of your agenda. There is then a response from the third-party complainant to a request from the organisation for early resolution, and that is attachment 4 and appears at pages 57 to 59 of your agenda. There's then notes of an interview with the third-party complainant, attachment 5, which is included at pages 60 to 63 of your agenda. And then there's questions by the investigator to Councillor Bradley and 2 responses from her, which appear at attachments 6, 7 and 8, starting at page 64 of the agenda. When the investigation report is received, the final report is received as required by the Councillor Complaints Investigation Policy. The CEO is obliged to provide that report to the Councillor Bradley and provide her with the opportunity to review and respond to that report. As Councillor Bradley alluded to in her statements earlier, her response to that opportunity is included as attachment 2 to the report, and that begins on page 76 of your agenda. Councillors, there are 2 decisions to be made today. The first decision is whether, on the balance of probabilities, councillors consider that there has been inappropriate conduct. If you do so make that finding, then a second decision is required, and that is what disciplinary action is appropriate. I should be clear to say that what disciplinary action is available to councillors is specified in section 150AH of the Local Government Act, but that has been detailed for you on page 24 of the agenda. Councillors, I'm happy to take any questions. I cannot provide any responses on evidentiary matters, only responses in respect to the process itself.
Thank you, Anita. So, councillors, we'll move on to the next section of this report, which is the moving of a motion which we're going to put up on the board, and it has been changed a little bit because Councillor Bradley has declared a declarable conflict of interest. So in point 1, just in that top line, please note that Councillor Bradley has declared a conflict of interest in this matter. So that has been added to the motions. So under section 14.2C of the Local Government and Committee Meeting Codes, this matter relates to suspected inappropriate conduct of a councillor, and we must move into debate. So first off, I'm going to put this motion up on the board and seek to see if there is anybody that would want to move this motion. Councillor Wilcox has moved the motion. Is there a seconder? And then we can go into debate. There's a seconder in Councillor Bradley. Okay. Bannon, sorry. Councillor Bannon, sorry. Got Bradley on the mind, sorry. Okay, so now Councillor Wilcox, would you like to open the debate? Councillor Raven.
Point of order. Are you moving that motion that we go into debate that we have to vote on? And can I speak to that motion?
We're going to have debate. This is how I've been told that this meeting has to be run, that we go for the motions, then we can debate, and then we'll see if the vote is carried. Is that okay, Councillor Raven?
I strenuously object to the rules of debate because they do not create good decision making or good discussion. And the meeting code, as discussed at length with the city solicitor, the meeting code doesn't explicitly say rules of debate. It says debate, which we have in this place all the time without using the rules of debate.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. Councillor Wilcox, would you like to proceed?
Sure. I moved the motion after thoroughly reading the report, asking quite a lot of questions before this came through to committee. Sorry, I'm just trying to find some notes. Essentially, Councillor Bradley had decided before releasing her book, and she announced publicly on Facebook that she would not run again. In my opinion, if Councillor Bradley had have waited to release her book until next year, until either she wasn't a councillor or we were in caretaker mode, I think she would have been fine. But the fact is she released a book for payment or for sale, and she publicly advertised that. I think that is probably one of the main issues here. When you read the statements through the report, I believe it's bringing council and council laws into disrepute. Toxic work environments, the comments that are made, fair enough, they may be from last term, but there is an illusion that it is partially this council and us as councillors, I believe, as well. She's bringing council into disrepute, saying that there was no safe environment. It's a byproduct of a toxic work environment. For me, if I was releasing a book, I would have left it till next term. She has tried to defend it by saying councillors have said that trailers were stolen. Councillors have said they've been going in and out of surgery. I know I was one that has been in and out of surgery last year, and I announced that on Facebook, but it was part of my job to do that because I went into surgery on one day, I announced it to the public, I came out the next day and I was working again.
Councillor Wilcox, can I just ask that we just keep it to the report? Thank you.
That is in the report. That's why I've said it.
I understand, but don't go into your personal...
No, I know.
Thank you.
She has tried to defend it by using what other councillors have put on their Facebooks. I don't believe we've been allowed natural justice because we can't sit here and we can't ask questions of Councillor Bradley. She was asked questions by the OIA. I think there was like 26 questions. Councillor Bradley is a professional woman. She's an educated woman. She did not, in my opinion, reflect or answer those questions in full. Instead, she chose to basically provide a statement that was not in full disclosure of all of those questions, and the OIA then had to ask more questions because it wasn't clearly stated in her statement. I personally believe if she had have chosen not to sell the book on her Facebook page, she may have in her what's it called, the little synopsis saying that it's the disclaimer that it's her personal beliefs. Honestly, who reads the personal beliefs and that sort of thing? But if you read the very top part of her disclaimer, she says in there, personal communication skills, integrity, honesty, high ethical standards, authority without domination, bullying, intimidation are needed for good decision making for Logan. To me, leaders set the tone. Good leadership is an important factor to allow the diversity of group of councillors to work well for common purpose, to allow for a vision and good decision making. Again, I think with the statements that have been made that are clearly in this report, it's bringing council into disrepute constantly, and she has not abided by her social media standards. Just one small bit. The rest of it has been fine. I think that's probably about all I can say.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. I believe in the rules of debate we're supposed to have a positive. Does anybody want to speak to it from a positive side? Councillor Hall.
Sorry, we should now ask for someone to speak against.
Could I ask somebody to speak against it? Councillor Hall, I believe that's still you. Thank you.
Against the motion, is that right?
Yes.
Yep. Look, I'm not here to judge the person. I'm here to judge what has led up to this happening. I think there needs to be some level of understanding is that our social media pages are our social media pages. Even though we do occasionally share content from Logan City Council, they are our pages. I believe Councillor Bradley has made a mistake in the process of what she has done, more so than what she has done. I myself have actually advertised other people's books in the community on my page, but the process that I do that is I put a little spiel before that saying this has nothing to do with council or my role as a councillor, and then so that people know that it's not being endorsed by council and it's not a council activity that I'm doing in terms of advertising that book. And I helped someone out by that they had just had a book launch and it just started in the community, and I believe that's okay. I think as councillors we should actually encourage local businesses. We should help out local people trying to do local things and trying to get ahead. That is part of our role as a councillor, is to help people in the community. That's how we work. I believe the process that Councillor Bradley has done wrong is she has not said that this is not a council book and this is not a council post. I believe if she put that in, she would have been okay. Okay? I believe this is more of a case of someone who's made a mistake in the process rather than actively doing something wrong. And it is often the case in similar circumstances like this that you judge the intentions of the person. Was Lisa Bradley's intentions with this post meant to do something bad? Was she trying to do something bad? I don't think she was. I think she was just there to trying to promote a book. I don't think she was trying to do something bad. So I can't see a bad intention in what she has done. I just believe she's made a mistake in the process of doing that. I often find that as a councillor, you have these private Facebook pages which nobody else can access except for the people that they allow onto those pages. And many of those pages are just designed to antagonise a councillor or antagonise an elected member.
Councillor Hall, thank you. Can you bring it to the end? Apparently we've got a time limit on each person.
I believe, look, they're our pages. We should decide what content we put on there. And as long as we do the right process in doing that, it should be okay. I just believe that she has done the wrong process, and I believe she should just apologise for that. Okay?
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Thank you. As I said early when we were starting this particular report, this is a very complicated matter, and we're going to have probably a lot of discussion today. So please bear with us while we move through this process, and everybody remain respectful. Please, Councillor Bannon.
So through the chair, you were talking against the motion, but when you spoke, you actually spoke in favour of the motion because it was the process is what she's actually broken. So I'm not sure what you did there. So she broke a process, and you just said that's what she did. At the end of the day, if you're a stickler for, I don't think it's a good rule, but there's probably 80% of the rules here I don't think are good. And when I get them wrong, I'm always apologising for them. So at the end of the day, she broke the process, black and white. So which is what you said yourself. She broke the process. She knew the rules. You explained yourself that when you do it different, so you don't get it wrong. So you say that you knew the rules and you get it right. She got it wrong. So to me, if you look at the rules are the rules, it's black and white, and you said it yourself that she broke the process. Whether she had intent for anything bad or not is irrelevant. Doesn't mean anything. Because you said you're not talking about the person. That's what you said. So she wasn't, it doesn't matter if she's trying anything else about it, she broke the process. If you break the process, there's a repercussion for it. Whether that be an apology, whatever we decide on, but she broke the rules.
Thank you, Councillor Bannon. And I know, Councillor Hall, that you'd like to enter back into the discussion, but apparently in the rules of engagement, you can only have one discussion with regards to this matter. And I'm just trying to follow procedure here, guys, okay? This is a very difficult report, and I want to make sure that we get through this process correctly for the justice of Councillor Bradley in this realm. So, Councillor Lane.
Madam Chair, am I allowed to move a motion to suspend the rules of debate so that we can actually have an open conversation around this rather than what we're currently having, because I don't think that this is productive at all.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Ms White, would you like to enter that discussion? And I believe the City Solicitor is here as well. Is the City Solicitor here with us? Yes. Thank you. If you could join the discussion as well. Councillors, we're just trying to make sure that this process is followed correctly so that we do have the natural justice that Councillor Bradley deserves. So, ladies, do you have any advice for us, please?
Councillors, we've previously provided the advice as to why we have the rules of debate for this. As you would appreciate, under the Local Government Act, the state is required to put in place model meeting procedures. And then Council adopts our meeting code to give effect to the model meeting procedures. To the extent that our meeting code is inconsistent with the model meeting procedures, the model meeting procedures take effect. The model meeting procedures are very clear, and the only time they talk about debate is in relation to matters dealing with suspected inappropriate conduct. So my view is that the rules of debate do apply.
Thank you, Ms White. Councillor Raven.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What do the model meeting code say? What's the words? Because that's what we're deferring to, because it's superior, like it's the highest standard.
Through the chair, the model meeting procedures say that local government must debate the issue.
And even if we consider that the rules of debate, which it doesn't explicitly say that, but even if we consider that the rules of debate, you've already done that by having a for and against, so we can exit the rules of debate now because we've ticked that box, haven't we?
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't agree that that's the intent of the requirement to debate it. I don't think that if you have one for and against that you've ticked a box and can move on to not debating. I think it's important with these matters, because it is such a serious issue, to remember that you're really exercising what's a quasi-judicial decision-making responsibility. So having there being debates that articulate whether you're for or against the motion helps to actually work through those issues and consider the evidence and balance what's the best outcome.
I disagree, because I don't think you get a good outcome from councillors not being able to speak more than once, councillors having to have a clear position on one side and not being able to change their position because Councillor Hall spoke against. But what if Councillor Bennett changes his mind and he wants to speak again? The rules of debate don't allow for that. So debate and discussion are very, very similar and achieve the same outcome. What we're trying to do is make decision-making in the public interest. And I don't think it's in the public interest to constrain councillors' ability to discuss the matter.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think the important thing is that the Chair has said that you are going to debate this matter and that the Chair is responsible for the conduct of the meeting. I do think that once everybody's had an opportunity to participate in the debate, if a councillor wants to speak again and the Chair is happy to allow that, I don't think that that's breaching the debating rules at all. I think it's a matter for the Chair to just determine how far that debate continues.
Does the meeting code allow us to overrule the Chair?
No. Through you, Madam Chair, the meeting rules don't provide for that. If you wanted to embark upon a process of moving a motion of dissent, which still would take you back to the Chair actually dictating the rules for the meeting, but so unfortunately not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. I understand your frustration. I also wish that Councillor Bradley was able to be here for us to be able to ask questions of her today, to give her that natural justice. I'm just following due process to give her that proper outcome that we require for this particular report. So I'd like, if we could, move through these motions, see where we get to. If we need to debate it even further and let everybody have a second question answer at the end, then I will do that at that time, if that's okay. So, Councillor Power, I understand you want to talk.
Yeah, I have a question. In relation to the process, we went straight to debate, rules of debate. I would have liked to had the opportunity to ask questions of the organisation, and that is what I consider to be discussion. I think the intent is, yes, debate takes place, but I think it would have been probably the best process is to ask the councillors the opportunity to ask questions, and then go into the rules of debate, because there's stuff in the report that clearly aren't there that I'd like to raise questions about. And if you can't raise questions, you can't get that information, then how can you make a decision? So I think the intent was, yes, have debate, but also have discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. Can I just ask the ladies whether that is possible? Because I'm sure there's other councillors within the room that would like to ask questions as well to add to this debate.
Through the Chair, I don't have a concern with questions being raised when a councillor has the opportunity to speak, either for or against the motion, and I'd be happy to answer them. But as I said in the lead-in, I can only answer questions as to the process that has been followed, and not the report itself.
So, Councillor Powell, do you have a question to ask, considering that you've got the floor?
Yeah, I have a number of questions, if I may.
Yes, you may proceed.
Okay, I'll put this to the manager. In regards to the Facebook page, is there any deed of ownership? Because I believe that councillors' Facebook, they may have invested money in actually setting up their Facebook account. They may have boosted the account during their election, which they would have paid for out of their own money. They would have built up, obviously, readership from that. My understanding is that there is a requirement to obtain all the information in the Facebook for public record. And that's where the system Brolly has been incorporated. Now, had that not been part of the process, it would have remained as a council asset, not a council asset. I put it to the manager that, do you have any proof that you actually have any ownership on the Facebook pages? Because my concern is if councillors don't have ownership, how can they get ownership? because councillors will be going into an election process very soon. They will have to obviously promote themselves, and the opposition will have Facebook accounts as well, and they will be promoting themselves. And do they qualify for public comment too as official candidates? Will the organisation be putting Brolly over their Facebook pages? I doubt it. But my suggestion is that the only reason why there's a requirement to have some sort of ownership on the Facebook is because of the need to have the umbrella over Brolly over their Facebook accounts to keep public records. But my suggestion is that the actual Facebook accounts are owned by the councillors themselves. And if not, how can you prove it?
Thank you, Councillor Powell. I do know that we will be talking further within Council shortly with regards to the social media policy, but this has happened prior to that. But I'll give the ladies an opportunity to talk, and then Mr. Powell, do you want me to come back to you to enter into debate as well?
No, I've asked a question. I'm looking for the answer.
Thank you. Ladies, can you help me?
No, thank you. Through the chair, I don't think council suggests for one moment that they own the Facebook page. However, the operation of the social media policy is such that when a councillor identifies on that and it says Councillor X, Division X for Logan City Council, the effect of the policy is that is a councillor official social media page, and therefore the policy applies. That is the social media policy as it currently applies and applies at the relevant time.
Okay, thank you. I guess I understand the logic behind that, but the councillor can open an account, the councillor can close the account, the organisation can't. The councillor can pay financially to boost pages, which the organisation can't. Who has control of the Facebook account? The councillor. You can't force a councillor to open a Facebook account, but it's in the general public interest that a councillor has a Facebook account. So I put it that the actual councillor, in fact, has ownership of that account. The problem with this is that the law hasn't really made a determination, and none of us are, except for our learned officer here, have any qualifications in the legal area. And would this be, if this went further up the legal chain, how would this be determined? My concern, obviously, is the future of this, because inadvertently, councillors, when the election comes up, people will take offence to the smallest component. Do councillors have to change their Facebook account to say, Darren Power, and that's it? Like, just take the word mayor? Who owns the word mayor? Well, I don't believe the council has, because the elected member has won the election. That ownership is actually the councillor themselves, not the organisation. So I don't know how the organisation can determine that they own the Facebook account. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, is there any further comment before? Oh, yes, Councillor Lane. Go ahead.
Thanks very much. Can you point out where in the social media policy it says you're not allowed to sell a book?
No, I cannot.
Thank you.
Okay, councillors, under the rules of debate, this is how I am going to proceed. So Councillor Wilcox and then Councillor Bannon has seconded the current motion that is up on the screen. We're going to test that with a vote. If it passes, then the matter will be closed. If this does not pass, then we'll test the alternate motions, of which we have another 2 to test. So currently we have Councillor Wilcox that has moved the motion, Councillor Bannon has seconded. Any of those councillors in favour of this motion, please raise your hand. So that has not been passed. Thank you. Councillors, we will now move on to the second motion, which will get the team to put up onto the board. This has been emailed to you previously for your perusal prior to this meeting. So just please bear with us while we get that up. No, this one. That she. Yes, Ms White.
Councillors, can I remind you that you don't need to, like if there is, we can, if it would make it easier, we can deal with the first question first, and that is whether there is a declarable conflict of interest. We can do that as simply as we can deal with that as a question first before we consider anything else. So if, whether there is inappropriate conduct, my mistake. So if you want to deal with that separately, we can do that first. The meeting officers would be able to, we could just test recommendation 2, put that first and then move on if that is something that the chair would like to entertain.
Thank you, Ms White. Yes, so in the second motion that is up on the screen, and I'll give the councillors a moment to read that, just in case they haven't seen it. There's a section 1 where it says that it notes that Councillor Bradley has careful conflict of interest, but she is also she has engaged in inappropriate conduct in number 2. But then no action be taken. Yeah, yes. So, for this particular motion, is there a person that would like to move this motion? Yes, Councillor Stem.
Sorry, Madam Chair. So if someone moves this motion, they have to go through the process of debating for and again. They have to go through that again?
Yes, yes, I believe so, yes. So is there anybody that wishes to move this motion? Councillor Wilcox, is there a seconder? Councillor Stemp. Councillor Wilcox, do you want to start?
Same as before. Councillor Bradley has participated in social media training in 2020 and 2021, as I believe all of us have as well. Our social media training may not say anything about selling books as part of it, but you need to refer to the training and refer to our code of conduct. It is predominantly council business on our councillor social media pages. I do not believe selling a book for profit, which she did not state originally in that very first post that the funds received would go to a charity, which was omitted from that post. I don't believe that is appropriate conduct.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. Is there anybody for the negative on that side? Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much through you, Madam Chair. So page 9 of the report lists a set of guidelines. It says that to meet with the community's expectations for high-level leadership, councillors will be committed to the highest ethical standards, uphold the system of local government and relevant laws applicable. It says that we will carry out responsibilities conscientiously and in the best interest of the council and the community. For example, councillors will at a minimum respect and comply with all policies, procedures and resolutions of council, of which nowhere does it say you cannot sell a book on your Facebook page. Council's policies, social media policy defines a councillor official social media account page. Now, I was offered one by council and I rejected that. When I was elected, I was given the title of councillor to use. It was not to be used lightly, and I certainly do use it on my social media page, of which it has my personal mobile, my personal email, and it has a disclaimer to say that I am a candidate and that I run in elections. So it is not an official council media page in any way, shape or form, and I'm pretty sure Councillor Bradley had something similar on hers. Now, it does say the social media may include, but is not limited to, social networking sites, Facebook, LinkedIn and Yammer. Council recommends the following social media options, with option A being preferred option, that a divisional Facebook page created under Council's corporate Facebook account or be a councillor official Facebook page. Councillors are able to choose one or both of the options. Where social media account page is operated by a councillor in their official capacity, its contents are considered records of council, not ownership of council, not defined under social media policy. That does not actually say you cannot sell a book on Facebook. It does not say that. It says that their official title being included in the account name, a lack of disclaimer that the account is not being operated in their official capacity. She had that on her social media page. Presence of a council's logo, she did not have that on her social media page. Use of the officers or council's official contact information, she did not have that on her social media page. And the posted content in the account relates to the officer or councillor's role in council. No one in public land would believe that council endorses Councillor Bradley's book in any way, shape or form. I would not personally go to her for life coaching, but that's my choice. I would not believe that council would actually endorse a book, and I don't believe anyone out in the public land believes that either. So I think when it comes to this, that we're actually looking at what our personal views are against what is actually set down in this document. This document is very clear with the policies, but they're vague enough that you can capture people under something that doesn't exist, that's not written down, and that's not okay. That's not what we're about. That's not what we're about. So I'm against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillor Bannon.
If there's not a clear black and white break of a rule, I don't even know what we're doing here. Or what even discussing it for. We shouldn't be talking about it. So is there a clear breach of something? That's the question, because you got me when you said, and we couldn't find it, so she hasn't broken any rules. Why are we even talking about it?
Sorry, through the chair, that's exactly why we're here. There was a suspected breach, and that was referred to the OIA. The OIA requested the organisation to investigate. That is the evidence that's been presented by the investigator. The onus that falls on council today is to determine whether, given the information that they have, on the balance of probabilities, they consider that there has been a breach.
Thank you. Councillor Raven.
Speaking against the motion, Madam Chair, specifically against clause 2 that says that council accepts the finding in the attached investigation report prepared by Ray Burton Consulting that on the balance of probabilities, council is...
Point of order. I believe we're up to for the motion, so I believe that Councillor Lane spoke against the motion. Then we'd go for the motion. I believe that Councillor Bannon was just asking a question. So I think I'm not sure, but I've actually lost track myself of where this is going.
Mr. Pear,
my point of order is I just want you to clarify whether or not Councillor...
We've had a for, a negative, a for, and now we've got a negative.
So you spoke for the motion, Councillor
against
Bannon?
it. So, Mr. Mayor, I think this is a very complicated report, and those that are playing along and listening out there, we are trying to make sure that natural justice is given to Councillor Bradley, and we are doing the rules of debate. So we've had a for the motion, against, a for, and now against with Councillor Raven. Thank you.
I will note, though, if they run out of fours, you can just keep doing against until the cows come home, right? So it's not super relevant if where Councillor Bannon was sitting.
So, Councillor Raven, I'm just correcting Councillor Mayor Power.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and you're doing an exceptional job. I'm speaking against specifically clause 2. I don't necessarily think that it's Ray Burton Consulting's fault that I disagree with his report, but there's information provided on page 79 of our agenda that I don't believe, and I wanted to ask Councillor Bradley about this, but unfortunately she didn't remain to answer questions. There's additional information provided by Councillor Bradley to the CEO that's provided to us as part of our considerations on page 79 that I believe would have changed the findings of Ray Burton's report. Explicitly, it's where Councillor Bradley attaches a screenshot of the disclaimer that she had on her Facebook page before she shut it down that says views expressed by myself are mine and not necessarily the views of Logan City Council nor their endorsement. This social media is account for personal and political purposes. It goes on with a whole bunch of other stuff that's specific to issues that arose from Councillor Bradley's previous code of conduct finding. And I recall when Councillor Bradley updated this because she let us know that she'd done it, and I read it at the time. So I'm confident that this existed before this OIA complaint. Because she's got this disclaimer, I don't see how this even, I don't understand how it even got this far, because and I'm disappointed that OIA has referred it to us, because this disclaimer explicitly says that her views are hers and not necessarily the views of Logan City Council. So there's whole sections of his report that go on about the implication that her book could be considered endorsed by council. That disclaimer explicitly removes it, and whether or not someone takes the time to read it doesn't matter, because she's put it there to make sure that she's complied with the advice we were given when we did our social media training. So, and up until I read that, I was really uncertain where to sit on this one, because technically you could say there's a breach of the social media policy, but great point, Councillor Lane, that it doesn't say that you can't use it occasionally, as long as it's not predominantly for non-council use. So then, and it doesn't define what the non-council uses are allowed to be. The response from the community, if you want to test the public interest, was pretty overwhelmingly supportive on her Facebook page. I don't know if she hid comments that or anything like that, but the content that we were provided to make a decision on indicates that the comments were overwhelmingly supportive. So the public interest test, is it in the public interest for her to share the book? The public seems supportive of it, and she's given herself like a disclaimer that covers everything that she does, to say that this social media account is for personal and political purposes. Now, the social media policy overrides that to some extent by saying that if you use your title, then it is an official page, which means the social media policy applies, but the social media policy doesn't prohibit the selling of a book or doing things for personal gain. Does it prohibit doing things for personal gain in the social media policy?
Councillors, all I would say in responding to that is that clause 57 of the social media procedure specifically says that when using social media accounts, councillors must maintain a clear distinction between personal and council-related social media use.
Thank you, Ms. White, appreciate that. I still believe that the disclaimer covers it. To remove all doubt, she could have put one specifically on the post, but I think the disclaimer still covers it. My frustration with the social media policy, and doubly so with the procedure, and this is not against the officers who are currently in the room because you weren't necessarily involved in creating it, and Mr. Mayor will remember that when the administrator was working on this policy, I very nearly got thrown out of the room for objecting too strenuously to this policy. We've had it come back before us a couple of times, and we've tried to change it, but it wasn't successful. However, we do have intentions to review it again, and hopefully with a new corporate governance manager who's excellent, we might get a different outcome. My problem is that we're benchmarking on a policy that was made in administration in a vacuum of no elected officials to decide whether or not it was appropriate. The procedure that Ms. White just quoted is never voted on by councillors. It is completely done by bureaucrats, and we don't have the power to change it because it's an operational matter. All we can change is the procedure. So for all of these reasons, I don't think that I cannot vote in favour of the motion on the screen. I think there are too many grey areas, both in the model meeting procedure and in the social media policy, for us to be able to find in favour of Ray Burton's recommendations. And I'd like to move to the next vote as soon as possible, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. Firstly, and thank you for your comments. I totally agree with you. So firstly, we'll deal with this motion on the board if there's no further questions. Councillor Wilcox?
Do I get a right of reply as soon as I moved it?
Yes, so just before you do, is there any further councillors that wish to speak? No. So, Councillor Wilcox, we have this motion on the board. You have moved the motion and Councillor Stamp has seconded. Your right of reply.
Thank you. Councillor Bradley does have the disclaimer on her main Facebook page, but Councillor Bradley still only added the disclaimer to her Facebook post about the sale of the book, where funds will go after the complaint came through. I still don't understand how the selling of a personally authorised book, writing about her time in council and about the toxic, unsafe work environment encountered. I haven't read the book, so I actually don't know what's in it. I don't understand how that would be okay to have promoted on your councillor Facebook page. Natural justice hasn't been awarded to any of us sitting in this room either, because Councillor Bradley isn't here for any of us to ask questions of her as well. I would have liked us to be able to ask questions of Councillor Bradley, but she hasn't awarded us that right. So for me, all I'm going is what is in a report. I'm not making assumptions. I'm going off black and white, what is written in a report on paper.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. I just want to add as the chair that I have read the book. I don't believe it brings council into disrepute at all. However, we are going to deal with this motion on the board. Councillor Wilcox has moved it, seconded by Councillor Stemp. All those in favour, please raise your hand. So, Councillor Wilcox, Councillor Stemp, are you changing your mind? And so Councillor Bannon has voted. The rest of us are not in favour, so that has not been carried. Thank you. Just the two, so Councillor Wilcox and Councillor Bannon. Just bear with us for a second, and then we'll bring up the third motion on the board. And I would like you to please peruse this. This was emailed out to you. The only changes is actually adding that Councillor Bradley has a declarable conflict of interest. Point 2 is that the council does not accept the finding in the attached investigation report prepared by Ray Burton's Consulting. And the balance of probability is Councillor Lisa Bradley has engaged in inappropriate conduct. So that is that council does not accept the findings. So is there a mover? Councillor Lane. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Raven. Councillor Lane, do you wish to open the debate?
Thanks very much, Madam Chair. The report is quite extensive. It does detail a lot of information, but like every good report, there's always a person that comes along later down the track and actually debunks some of the stuff. So reports are only as good as the questions that you ask from the reports, not just the reports themselves. So it's what you know, what you think you know, what you feel, what you've asked questions about, and then you make a decision based on that. One person's interpretation isn't always the facts, it's their interpretation of what they've investigated and written on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Is there anybody for the opposite side? No? Oh, Councillor Mann.
It's half opposite, half fence sitter. So basically, we just decided if we think she's breached. Like, there's no clear rule, black and white. It's up to us whether we think she's breached the rule. That's it.
This
right.
particular motion, there is no code of conduct for Councillor Bradley at all. We're just finding that the council does not accept the findings at all.
State government should do the job.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bannon. Is there any further questions? Councillor Raven.
Just want to speak in favour of the motion, Madam Chair, if that's okay. I understand, thank you, councillors, for the debate today, and I'm glad that we participated in it. Natural justice has been raised a couple of times, and I agree that it would have been ideal to be able to speak to Councillor Bradley, but I can't, my ethics don't allow me to find against somebody just because I didn't get to ask them questions when the evidence doesn't clearly stack up on the balance of probabilities to indicate that she's engaged in inappropriate conduct. Natural justice is the right for a person who's been accused of something to have a fair trial. We don't get natural justice as people who are making the decision. And that trial is without bias, and I think we've done that today. I would have loved to have been able to ask Councillor Bradley questions in this place and then be able to go back to Ray Burton to be able to ask him questions, because I don't think my disagreeing with Ray Burton's investigation is a reflection on his capacity as a consultant. I think with the information that he was provided, he probably made the best advice he could, but I just think there was more information to be found, and I would have liked to have had that included in the report and considered to get that independent advice, but we don't have that ideal situation. We've got this. So with the information provided, I can't, in good faith, find that Councillor Bradley is engaged in inappropriate conduct, which is why I'll be supporting this motion. I look forward to a thorough review of the social media policy, because this is a great example of how complicated it is for councillors to make a decision and how complicated it is for the organisation to effectively regulate councillors' behaviour in social media when they don't have direct influence or control over it. So I am very happy to second the motion, and I look forward to the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. I couldn't agree more. This has been a hard process for everybody. It is a very grey area. We have further work to do on the social media policy, which will be looked at later this week, actually. So, councillors, is there any further discussion to be had today? No. Okay. We do have a motion up on the board. Councillor Lane has moved that motion and Councillor Raven has seconded it. All those in favour, please raise your hands. So that has been carried with the exception of Councillor Wilcox. How do you vote?
Against.
Thank you. So that has been carried. Thank you, councillors, with regards to that report. It has been a testing one, and I don't want to do that ever again. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Madam Chair.
Councillors, that has brought us to the end of today's meeting. Apart from Councillor Bannon, do you want to add something?
Is there some way we could talk and do a better process? Because that was as clear as mud. Look, nothing against you guys, you did, but that whole process, like, I didn't feel confident any way through that, let alone to charge a council something through that. Is there some way we can request at the state to get a better process? Because that was horrible.
Councillors, I'd like to propose that we have a lunch and learn every week on the rules of debate.
Thank you. Councillor Power?
I'd just like to make a comment because this council has been quite different to previous councils. In that previous councils went to rules of debate all the time. And the reason for that is generally there was a very divided council and it was a lot of point scoring and a lot of things were not allowed to be spoken. In particular, in some cases when there wasn't a speaker for, people couldn't speak against, and it was a way of, and in particular, the employment or the sacking of the former CEO. Only Councillor Raven got to speak, no one else did, that was not supporting the motion. So I personally think that we're a board of directors, not like Brisbane City Council where we've got opposition. We're working together for the city to determine the best outcomes, and the way we discuss things, I think, has been a way of progression. I think that we allow each council to discuss everything. We allow every question to be discussed, and we're moving forward. Previously, point scoring, emotions were at an all-time high, and that feelings would be hurt. There'd be disgruntled councillors. There'd be leaking of confidential information. There'd be all sorts of things. I think this council has acted in the best way in moving forward, in that rules of debate should be avoided to some degree. I think on some of the big issues maybe, but generally I think we get the best decision out of the way we're doing things at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Power. I couldn't agree more. Thank you, everybody, for being respectful today. It has been a hard report to get through, and I thank you for your respect in the process. Councillor Raven, would you like to wrap us up for a second?
Yes, please, Madam Chair. Thank you. Good work on chairing a very difficult piece of the meeting code. And I agree completely with the Mayor's sentiment and statements. Is there a way that we can do a review specific or a briefing that leads to a review specifically on the rules of debate? Because I think there needs to be steps in order to meet the model meeting code. Some debate must be entered, and if we can do that in a way that still allows us to have a free-flowing discussion in the public interest, it doesn't turn into this really challenging sort of environment, even if that's as simple as saying I'm speaking for the motion or I'm speaking against, but you can still do the normal process we follow. Because my understanding is the only real thing you need to do to be considered debating is say if you're on one side or the other. It doesn't necessarily have to go alternate, and it doesn't have to give everyone one crack at it, because I think a lot of councillors look like they felt uncomfortable to speak, and I don't know if that was because it's an uncomfortable report or just because they're not used to the rules of debate, but I think we get better decision making with open discussion.
Thank you, and through the chair, Councillor Raven, you might like to consider a GB item asking for a review of the meeting code in that.
So moved. Don't you love it? Could I please can I please put a general business item asking that we review the meeting code? Specifically around the rules of debate.
Thank you. To Ms White.
In relation, the rules of debate, no, just specifically around the rules of debate.
Thank you. Please bear with us while the meeting team prepare that for you.
And while they do that, I'll just waffle a little bit, because the meeting code is something that controls how we conduct ourselves in council and committee. So if it doesn't work for the councillors, then it's not working. And it's not working in the interest of the community, because if we're not able to have a free and open discussion in which, as the Mayor said, the board gets to the best decision possible, then the meeting code's not doing its job.
So, Councillor Raven, we're just trying to prepare that for you. We'll have this up on the screen shortly, but we've said that the future report be prepared and presented to a future governance committee meeting, including the review of the local government and committee meeting code with a focus on the rules of debate. So that should be coming up shortly. Can you just please check that motion before you move it?
I would love to.
Thank you.
That would be fantastic. I'm very happy to move that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Raven has moved a motion, a general business motion up on the board. Is there a seconder to that? Councillor Power, all those in favour, please raise your hands. Councillor Kransky, thank you for coming along. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you. So while we're coming to the end of the meeting, does anybody have any general business for Robert today at all? Robert, do you have any for us? Thank you. That concludes today's agenda. I declare the governance meeting of the 19th of July concluded at 11:59 a.m. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much for your support today.